Hi everyone, I'm John and thanks for joining me here in the Boneyard. Last night I watched a late 90s big budget classic that still feels full of charm and nostalgia, but seems to have lost a little something in translation. In 1998, Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage were two of the biggest names in Hollywood. Ryan was the queen of the rom-com genre, having made her mark with Rob Reiner's When Harry Met Sally in 1989.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
I'll have what she's having.
And then riding high on that train, she continued with huge hits such as Sleepless in Seattle, When a Man Loves a Woman, Addicted to Love and French Kiss. Amongst all of these, she did what I consider to be one of her greatest movies, with the dramatic thriller Flesh and Bone in 1993, but that's for another video. Nicolas Cage had just hit his second stride in Hollywood and had already proven he could be a successful romantic leading man in the 1980s and early 90s, with films such as Valley Girl, Moonstruck, Honeymoon in Vegas, and the great It Could Happen to You. All Cage's hard work paid off, and he came back with a vengeance to become a Hollywood superstar after the release of the heralded movie Leaving Las Vegas.
Why are you killing yourself?
Interesting choice of words. I don't remember.
Cage then hit a Hollywood action home run with The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off before being offered the romantic lead in City of Angels.
It's nice to see you again.
It's weird to see you again.
Weird is nice.
At this time, Ryan and Cage were the biggest names in Hollywood.
I'm doing a movie with Nora Ephron and Tom Hanks, and Greg Kinnear and Parker Posey, and it's really fun.
Meg, I want to congratulate you on your performance in City of Angels. I love this film. It's a beautiful film.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. It's a beautiful love story.
It really is.
City of Angels is an indirect remake of Wim Wenders' arthouse favorite Cannes-winning classic, Wings of Desire, about two angels who walk the streets of East and West Berlin and make comment on the human condition and listen to the private thoughts of human beings in the city. One of the angels, of course, falls in love with a woman, a circus performer, and in the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds scored 1980s Berlin music scene, they fall in love.
Es muss einmal ernst werden. Ich war viel allein, aber ich habe nie allein gelebt.
City of Angels, the remake, swaps Berlin's poetic grey skies for the golden haze of Los Angeles, trading introspective monologues for a pop ballad music type feel and literal angel tears.
If you'd known this was going to happen, would you have done it?
Where Wenders' original was all mood and meditation, City of Angels is more direct, more emotionally packaged, more Hollywood. Some would say it's a dilution of the original, and I would say that they're right.
I want to say goodbye. I don't want to see you again.
The remake takes one of the many plot lines in Wenders' original film, the love story element, and just runs with that. Everything else pretty much goes to the wayside. Wenders had no problem with the remake. After all, he sold them the rights to his story, but he did say when asked his opinion that City of Angels had kind of missed the point of his original film altogether. That being said, I would say that City of Angels also has something else to it. In its own sweet, innocent way, City of Angels is an earnest, strange, and often beautiful attempt to translate the philosophical art of a somewhat more independent, more uniquely directed movie into a mainstream romance for a much wider audience than the original. And you know what? I think in many ways the remake works.
Huh? Is this heaven? Look at this.
I mean, I may be getting softer in my old age, but I really enjoyed the melancholy, often painful, and yet joyous feelings of the remake. Watching it this time around, there is something I had certainly missed when I had first watched this film as a much younger film fan in cinemas, and perhaps that was because I hadn't experienced some of the more grown-up and mature themes that this movie discusses, such as trust, emotional and physical pain, and personal sacrifice for love. The film definitely has the feel of a Hollywood romance, but beneath the surface, the 34-year-old director Brad Silberling, who I had known from making the Casper movie with Christina Ricci and Bill Pullman, was reaching for something, I think.
City of Angels, I know for me, is about sort of leaps of faith and the victory of faith, the courage it takes to believe in something that's unseen. A lot of the film is that. It's how do you marry ideas, questions about spirit, questions about consciousness, and yet tell a good love story.
He certainly did not catch the poetic depth of the original Wings of Desire,
Es macht gar nichts.
but there feels as if there is something of a truth in his search for answers. Perhaps it's because he was at middle age, and we all begin to deal with loss at that point in our lives. The rest of the cast, Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage, were both at the height of their fame and both in their mid to late 30s as well. And I think that may have had something to do with what I felt watching the movie again last night.
The concept of giving up the non-life, if you will, to be alive, to be human. Even though you're going to grieve and you're going to go through really hard times, you're still going to be thankful that you had those experiences.
I think the remake, more so than the original, is about letting go of the past, embracing the future, and living for the moment. But let's not get too wussy about it. Just to say, it made me think a lot more about life this time around.
Why don't you ever touch me?
I don't want to hurt you.
You won't hurt me.
It doesn't hurt either. The Cage was at the top of his game at this point, and he was taking his craft very seriously, as I think he always does. He's an eccentric actor and gives his roles his all, and I think he was cast perfectly in the Hollywood version of Wenders' Wandering Angel.
In the elevator of the Bradbury building, a man touched a woman's bare skin by accident, but it made her turn and look at him in such a way.
What he does bring to the role in spades is that childlike wonder in his eyes when he's seeing the beauty of the world for the first time.
Is it red?
Red. Is it red? Color.
What color were the drugs you took?
When his angel eventually falls to earth and becomes human.
I mean, I've always gotten it hearing you say it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, its impact is there, you know?
So that means there is a soul. It's hard for me. It's frustrating for me. I quickly became frustrated that it's impossible to play an angel. And I'm learning that. What do you do when you're an angel? Do you move? Do you have gravity? Touching my face implies that I can feel. I mean, this means I have touch.
96 take.
I wasn't in character.
Well, let's look at...
I mean, if I were to play an angel in the purest sense, I would just be singing through the whole thing. You know, no matter what happened, praising everybody, even in their pain. And then we'd have no movie.
The biggest shift in tone between the two is the Wings of Desire is quiet, contemplative, often spectral. It lingers in its stillness and invites you in to listen more than watch. Most of the dialogue in the movie is internal to the characters and is spoken very softly, like contemplative poetry.
Zeit wird alles heilen. Aber was ist, wenn die Zeit selbst die Krankheit ist? Als ob man sich manchmal bücken müsste zum Weiterleben.
City of Angels, by contrast, wants you to feel and pushes you in the direction of high emotion and tears and kind of tells you how to feel.
I don't believe you. Do you feel that?
You don't want to believe me.
I cannot conceive of it!
It leans hard into the tragic romance between Nicolas Cage's Angel and Meg Ryan's Surgeon, which is a big departure from the original. And although the two share a lot of similarities, the stories end very differently. And because of this, City of Angels kind of ends up being a very different movie in story and tone.
Mostly it's an experience of being the person who is in control, no longer in control.
I suddenly have this feeling that none of this is in my hands, nothing. And if it isn't, what do I do with it?
One of these doctors said, I asked him, I said, do you believe in God? He said, no. I said, have you ever seen a miracle? And he said, yeah. And I think that's Maggie.
And that's why I think we might want to give it another chance and allow it to stand on its own two legs 27 years after its release and give it another try.
This is what I like best.
You haven't even started yet. We have our whole lives together.
One of my own problems with City of Angels is that there is a lot less mystery and a heck of a lot more exposition that explains the story and leaves nothing to the imagination. The metaphysics of the angels and the world they live in are overly simplified.
Tell them the truth. Angels aren't human. We were never human.
And the angels wear their black trench coats that feel more like costume choices that look cool on screen rather than symbolic. But that's okay. This movie is trying to be something different than the original and stand on its own. I would say that if Wings of Desire is a poem, like much of Wenders' work, then City of Angels is a pop music love song. Flawed, earnest, definitely overproduced, but still moving in its own way if we hear that song at the right time.
Am I being punished?
You know better than that. That's life.
That said, it's impossible to fully separate the remake from the original. Some of City's most interesting moments feel like faint echoes of a deeper movie when it tries to mimic Wings of Desire's sense of longing or seeing the world but never really touching it, because the angels in the film can't sense, touch, or truly feel the world around them. In the original, the angels can only see in black and white, and things shift to colour when they begin to feel real love and emotion. The library scenes in City, which is where the angels live, don't quite land in the remake, and that sense of knowledge and reasoning behind that plot point doesn't quite make sense in the remake. There is also an overload of overhead shots of LA's vast disconnected sprawl and angels standing on beaches, rooftops, atop skyscrapers that, in their abundance on screen in City of Angels, look great, but lose any real sense of meaning because they begin to become transition shots from scene to scene, and we see them so often that they're not really as poignant as the overhead shots of the city in Wings of Desire.
Ich könnte nicht sagen, wer ich bin. Ich habe nicht die geringste Ahnung von mir. Ich bin jemand ohne Herkunft.
These nods to Wenders' original don't always land, but I do think they show respect for the original, and that for me goes a long way. I also have to give a quick mention to the cinematography in City of Angels, which is quite beautiful and shot by one of my favourite cinematographers, John Seale, whose work I fell in love with many years ago as a result of watching his mind-bendingly great work on the action classic The Hitcher. He's a fantastic cinematographer, and City of Angels may fall short on deeper meanings, but it is a great-looking movie, and Seale nails this kind of ethereal look of the angels standing like protective gargoyles over the city's inhabitants.
What we tried to do was to work out, and still are, obviously, as we shoot, working out the way we can cut it so that any mortal's point of view hasn't got angels. But if we turn around and look back at that mortal, suddenly there's angels in the foreground. That way the audience starts to get used to the fact that these angels just come and go, or they're there but a mortal can't see them.
So to sum up, I think City of Angels ultimately does succeed on its own terms. Not because it replicates Wings of Desire, but because it dares to reshape it into something more accessible, romantic, and unabashedly sentimental for a mainstream audience. And you know what? Sometimes you don't want to think, and you just want to sit down and be entertained, maybe shed a few tears, have a hug on the couch, or have a kiss in the cinema, and that's the kind of movie that City of Angels is. The chemistry between Cage and Ryan is fragile, it seems sincere though, and Cage stands out between the two because he gives this performance his all, as I think he always does, and that's why I'll always be a fan of his work, no matter what he does.
Because it deals with subject matter that's, complicated and something that we all have to deal with at some point or another. But at the same time, it's a very uplifting movie. I think people will leave the theater hopefully feeling good about being alive.
The film's willingness to lean into a kind of emotional vulnerability without irony is something rare in love stories even now, I think. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. An over-the-top, emotionally impactful, Hollywood-made love story. There is no doubt that if only one of these movies had to exist, I would pick Wings of Desire. I can't help but think I've done that movie a bit of a disservice with all my praise for City of Angels in this review, because it really is an incredible movie, the original, that needs to be seen to be believed because it's so beautiful, poetic, and cool with its Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds music, and it's a powerful movie of meaning and understanding. And I think I'll definitely do a bit of a deeper dive into Wings of Desire coming soon in the Boneyard in the future. But City of Angels does exist, and some people don't want to watch an existentialist, black and white movie about angels wandering around the Berlin Wall and listen to poetic musings about the meaning of existence, memories, and love. Some people just want a good love story, and there's nothing wrong with that. City of Angels doesn't really try to be Wings of Desire. It's trying to translate its spirit, imperfectly certainly I think, but it does do it with heart. And for all of its glossy moments and Hollywood tropes, there's a kind of beauty in that attempt to reshape an art house flick that has a beautiful message into something that everybody can understand and enjoy no matter what you taste in cinema. A reminder that even remakes, when handled with care, good performances can bring something new and entertaining to the table.
At the same time that it's saying, you know, it's passing away is something which is okay. It's telling you, stick around because life is really worth living.
What if I just make her a little pair of wings out of paper?
Tell her the truth.
And cut! Thanks for listening to my take on City of Angels. If you would like to hear more from me on more conventional Hollywood movies and more reviews similar to this one, let me know in the comments. I do really love to talk about remakes, reimaginings, and reboots because it's something that has always been a part of cinema since the very beginning. And I do often prefer some of the more modern remakes to the originals. Let me know your thoughts on remakes in the comments below. And in the words of Stephen King, just look at how many times they did Hamlet, and a new version of that never hurt anybody. I want to say a huge thank you to all my Boneyard members and Patreon supporters. And if you do like my content, please consider clicking join to see original content, including my own short films, making of commentaries, and content that is perhaps a little bit more personal for anybody who wants to dig deeper here on the Boneyard. Don't forget to check out the store tab for new merch and original clothing designs, and please leave your thoughts in the comments below. It's your contribution that keeps me digging up classics right here in the Boneyard, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.
Huge screen TV with you.
Can you ask Gary about that coffee?
Yeah.
I can never understand why it takes so long.
Okay.
Bye.